Hey, Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on the Conscious Style podcast. I'm super excited to chat with you today. I love all of your YouTube videos, and I know you're going to share so many amazing insights and tips with us today. Could you start listeners off by giving an introduction of yourself, your background, what your story is, what led you to where you are right now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I've been so enjoying your podcast. So this
Thank
is really great to be here.
you.
Thank you. I guess background, I'll try and make it as brief as possible. Right now, I am a slow fashion content creator and a sustainable stylist. So I offer virtual styling for people who want to shop their closets and learn about being, a more conscious consumer. And I also create content on YouTube and Instagram all around shopping your closet and learning how to shop less but still feel really stylish. But before this, I actually worked in finance. So my career started in banking, and then I left that to work retail in a luxury boutique. And that's where I really learned a lot about dressing people and, making sure that they're investing in quality pieces over quantity. Like it was definitely a more high end boutique. So that's where I learned a lot about like good quality garments and things like that. I got a lot of great experience and then branched out on my own to do freelance wardrobe styling. So I did that for a couple of years and a bit of freelance writing, but I learned a lot again in freelance wardrobe styling about dressing people, really using what you have, because when you show up on set, all you have is the clothing that you brought. So I learned a lot about wardrobe styling and dressing people in that experience. And then about halfway through that experience, I was asked to do a talk on reducing your consumption. And there was a bunch of stuff going on in my life as well. Like I had moved, my husband and I had moved from a townhouse to a condo. I had left my finance job, so I didn't have a lot of money. So over time, I had really been learning about having a very small closet. I couldn't afford to buy a lot. And then at the same time as I was styling people, I really understood that there was a huge disconnect between, how satisfied people were with their closets, or dissatisfied, I should say. They had so many clothes and yet they always wanted to shop more. So I was in this kind of odd period, and then I got asked to do this presentation, and that's what really got me into researching slow fashion and sustainable style. And of course, I watched The True Cost, which is, I think, everybody's jumping
Mm-hmm.
off point into this world. And I realized that I was already doing a lot of these practices of slowing down my consumption. And that's when I really decided to focus my content creation on helping people shop less through everything I learned as a stylist. So really
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand looks from almost like an elements of style perspective versus, oh, I have to go out and buy more. So I thought it was an interesting marriage. It took a very long time to get here though, like
Yeah.
because telling
Yeah,
people
that's a
to
really
shop less.
interesting journey. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. Yeah, like there's a lot of connections with saving money, finding satisfaction with our clothes, and also a sustainable approach to creating our wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a lot of approaches to sustainable fashion, which is one of the things that I love so much about this movement. One of my favorite things about this podcast, talking to people, going at it from such different directions. And your approach, as you talked about, is all about, creativity over consumption, or, making the most of what you have, restyling your wardrobe. So could you tell us a little bit more about what that means? What does all of that look like in practice?
Yeah, of course. That's such a great question. I think the first thing is to really, I think the first step in using creativity over consumption for me, and a lot of what I talk about, is just starting off by being aware of how much you actually have, and thinking about, like, before you shop, even just being aware, like, wait a minute, how many shirts do I actually have? So kind of the first step in being more creative is to start kind of training your mind to be like, wait a minute, what do I have at home first? So it's not even like into the styling portion yet. It's really just about thinking that your first option is always what you already have. And that
Mm-hmm.
is what really, because I think the more you know what you have, the more you see what you have in your closet. A lot of us have so many pieces that are just kind of hiding at the back, so you don't actually get to use the clothing that you have. So if the first point is awareness and understanding that you actually do have a lot of clothes, maybe they don't fit, maybe they don't suit, but I think looking at our closet from a mindset of abundance instead of scarcity is like that first shift, I think, that has to happen. I think a lot of us are very lucky in that we have access to clothing. So that's the very, very basis of it. And then the next step, once you get used to realizing, like, wait a minute, I already have a lot of clothes in my closet, don't need to go out and shop, then that creativity piece really comes in. So taking time to style what you already have. And I think that's the biggest piece that is difficult in this whole slow fashion and using what you have and mending and maintaining your clothes. Like, a lot of us, our lives are very busy, they're very fast paced. So there is that slow piece that has to enter into, like, every step, I think, of what your interaction with your closet. So whether it's taking the time to plan your outfit, for example, for the week, or taking the time to mend or take something to the tailor that you really love, but it's falling apart or it doesn't fit you and you just need a minor adjustment to maybe get it to fit a little bit better, and then you'll wear it again. So time is that second piece that I think is quite involved in learning how to be more creative with what you already have. Because I find as soon as you spend like an hour of time with what you have, whether it's planning your outfits or just playing around and trying to come up with something new, um, it makes all the difference in, like, you start coming up with ways to wear what you already have. And that's often, like, before my virtual styling sessions, I get people to fill out a form and just put some clothing aside, and they often start our session by saying, oh, like, I've already come up with so many different outfits, and they haven't even started, like, we haven't done anything yet because all
Yeah.
it took was that time. So I think it has to be a very conscious effort. Because I think the other piece is that a lot of people assume that creativity is something that is only for a select number of people, but I don't think that's it
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like, everyone can be creative. Sometimes maybe you need the help of, like, I know one of your previous guests, from Stylebook, like Stylebook, Cladwell. These are great tools
Mm-hmm.
to help you, perhaps, just boost your creativity. But I think time and awareness are the two kind of foundations to just boost, like, giving yourself that little, like, kick in the pants to start getting creative, and then it gets easier every time.
Yeah, I love what you said about sometimes we're kind of thought to believe that creative is only for creative types or creative people, but we all have that in us. And
Yeah.
that's something that I really love about your videos is that you kind of you train people almost or give the foundation for how to be creative. And I think that is such a transformative mindset when it comes to fashion, right? Because basically the approach we see in today's mainstream fashion world, fashion media, influencers, magazines, whatever, is copy this look, buy this for this season, get rid of that from that last season because it's out. And this really becomes how we even perceive what fashion is this copy the look, be like the celebrity, wear this in and don't wear that's out. But how do you think that we can kind of work to shift this collective mindset and expand our minds for what fashion and style can be?
Yes, absolutely. It's so funny because that's where that, like, fast piece comes in, right? It's always about the new and getting rid of the old, but you really hit it in that question about, um, the elements of style, and I think that's that's kind of the very first piece. And like you said, I try and train people to see clothing two ways. First of all, not necessarily as the garment itself, and really breaking it out into these elements like color and texture, and silhouette and all these things. Because as soon as you shift the focus from a plain white tee just being a plain white tee to it being oh, but it's a contrast to black and navy and bright pink, or it's a soft texture in comparison to like a harsh leather pant. It fully changes your perspective on this one little white t-shirt. And I think it also brings more value to that t-shirt, because again, with this idea of disposability, which is so problematic for the environment and the people who create our clothes, of course, um, it kind of gets us out of that mindset of, oh, this is just a white t-shirt, I only paid $5 for it, blah, like the end. So that's that first piece is why I focus so much on the elements, because I think fashion can become uh, more artistic in a way, and more individualized and I don't know if individualized is a word, personalized. It's a safer word. It becomes more personalized because you're not just looking at whatever trends of the moment it is. You're looking at the elements that actually suit you and your lifestyle and what fits your body and what you love. So that's kind of the first piece that I think fashion can really start shifting into something that is so much more personal.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it can also, I think this approach also helps for us to become a little bit more materialistic, but in a good way. Like, no
Yeah.
matter how much you paid for your garment, someone made it. And it clothes you, it protects you from the elements, it's an extension of your personality. I would hope that this can also expand our mind into bringing the value back into our garments, so that we don't treat them as disposable, and we don't see fashion as something that is quick and in and out and
Mhm.
completely based on someone else's construct of what they think looks great. Because like the magazines and the fashion influencers, I mean, yeah, like I follow them too, they're great, but they don't know your life and your daily
Mhm.
habits and what your body is. So I think I think that's how those elements of style can really change how we see fashion, quote unquote,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love how you break down garments into these elements in your videos. Like I never would have thought of that, but it's so genius. And an
Oh,
ex- an
yes.
extension of that is like how you help people copy the look, copy a look they see on Pinterest or Instagram or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then recreate that outfit by breaking it down into the elements of that outfit instead of being like, well, I need a green jacket and a white blouse, but really
Yeah.
like getting people to model the feeling of that outfit. So, could you
Yes.
talk to us a little bit more about that, how you reverse engineer this look to help people, model that look without actually buying new stuff?
Yes, yeah. I love doing those too. It's just so neat to see what comes out of it, because it's usually not at all, or like it's similar to what the inspiration look is, but it's not, it's your own piece. Yeah, so the reverse engineering, um it gosh, I start with, as you mentioned, the style vibe and the personality of the look, which I think has a lot to do with the wearer and the person who's modeling it. So I think doing that is the first step in understanding, okay, this is the vibe that they're giving off, whether it's like edgy or retro or vintage inspired. And a part of that, you can, if those aren't your personal style traits, by starting off with that guidepost of what is the overall energy and vibe of this look, you can start to translate it already to a look that is more suitable for you. I think there's so many times when, I'm sure this has happened to me, when you buy a piece that you see on someone or even a mannequin or in a magazine, and you get home and you put it on and maybe it fits, but it just doesn't, like, it's just not you.
Hmm.
And so I think that whole like style personality is a really important piece of that reverse engineering. So I always usually start with that, so that when you are shopping your closet for a look, you're keeping your own style personality in mind. And I find that the more we do this, like the more solidified we are in our personal style, the easier it is to really focus in on what we want and what we like, and drown out the noise of these trends and this consumption model that is constantly being thrown at us. But when you're pretty solid in what you like and why, it's so much easier to say no. So I
Yes.
think doing that is such an important exercise. And I do kind of like to focus on what is within the consumer's control, um, especially if they're just starting to get into slow fashion.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a nice way to help people slow down their consumption. So I always start with like the overall style vibe of a look, and then after that, I break it down into these elements. So, like you said, like if someone's wearing a green jacket with like I don't remember, it was a green jacket and like white pants or something. Instead of seeing the fact that it's a specific green jacket, maybe you just look at their overall use of color. Is it contrasting? Is it analogous? Like, is it all tonal? And so it stops really being about the color green and the jacket, and it starts being more about how this person used color and how can I apply that use of color with the palette that I have in my closet. Maybe I don't look good in green. Like, it's that kind of concept. So I really think that that style vibe piece is the important part, because that's when you can really step into your own style, um, and have so much more power over the trends that just come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And like the green jacket one, I think she was wearing like a turtleneck, for instance, like a turtleneck sweater. And you're like, I don't have a big, huge turtleneck, thick turtleneck sweater. So you put like a
Yeah.
scarf.
Right.
And it
Yes.
gives the same,
Same thing.
it looks similar, gives the same vibe or whatever, but you didn't
Yeah.
have to go buy a turtleneck,
Exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
Because you could only see
Exactly.
the neck of the outfit anyway, in the outfit.
Yes. Under the jacket. Oh, yes. I know exactly which one you're talking about now. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to link that series, is like Shop Your Closet series, in the show notes so everybody can check that out because they're really great videos.
Oh, thanks.
So like another style video that you have on your channel is you break down the elements of a specific style genre, like Italian style or boho or minimalist or feminine or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and teach people how to replicate that vibe in their existing closet. And I think that would be really interesting for people to hear kind of like how you do that. So I know one type that's really popular in your channel is Italian style, as well as
Mm-hmm.
I think French style was really popular as
Yeah.
well. Can you give us a brief synopsis of how you go through that process of replicating a style, um, without buying something new, and maybe give using the example of the Italian style, like just as an
Yeah.
example?
Yeah, sure. I think, again, it really falls into pinpointing the elements that are most repeated. So I always start with like a mood board. So it's almost as if you're going to do a shoot or something like that. And I find all sorts of inspiration from everywhere, usually in fashion, but it can be from anywhere really. And I think that's kind of the neat thing about using these elements as a base, is like you can take elements from nature or art or wherever, right? And it can still be recreated. And that's another part of that whole creativity over consumption piece, when you start seeing inspiration from everywhere. But anyway, sorry, feel like I digressed.
That's
So
great.
I create like a big mood board, and then I just try and pinpoint the elements that I see repeated in all of those different images. um, and I find that when you look for it and you take the time, you do see these kind of patterns developing, or something that is like an element that is prevalent. So for example, in the Italian style, it's really about like fit and tailoring, and it didn't matter about what size the person was or how old they were. Their clothes were always really beautifully tailored in a way that flattered their body the most. So it's really about taking the time to identify these overarching elements that happen within one certain vibe. And of course, it's never like black and white, like everything is very nuanced. But I think when you do that, it's also a way for you to incorporate your own values into the picture as well. So, you can follow certain elements that suit you, certain artistic elements like the fit with Italian style. Another piece was everything is usually beautifully balanced and proportioned. So like if they had a big dramatic top, it was balanced out with an equally or really interesting shoe, or vice versa. Everything was really harmonious, or they balanced out something very dramatic with a very understated rest of the look. So there's always that sense of balance, which I think is really beautiful. But you can take those elements of style and then apply your own values to them, which I think in slow fashion, um, and as you start to get into the world of sustainability and sustainable fashion, there is so much wrong with the industry, and it can be very overwhelming. So you can apply what values that are important to you, whether it's buying secondhand or perhaps buying only recycled fabrics. You can still apply those values and be true to your values while still following a style genre that speaks to you and works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that, I hope that
Yeah.
answered it.
Yeah,
I went
that's
a little bit
great.
off with the whole values piece, but I think that's important.
No, I
Sorry.
think that's important and I think would be really relevant for listeners. Like sometimes you see a style that you like, and if you maybe only focus on literally copying the looks that you're seeing, you might be limited to fast fashion or something because they're really quick to copy trends, what
Mm-hmm.
celebrities are wearing, all that stuff. But when you more look at the feel of the outfit or the vibes, the elements, it's easier to then find those pieces sustainably through secondhand or from conscious brands or whatever. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really helpful.
Okay,
And
good.
then another sort of concept that you touch on in your YouTube channel is styling a single piece in many different ways, which I think is another helpful approach to making the most out of our closets. Like, you have a video on 10 ways to wear white jeans or button down or shirt dress or whatever. So, what tips do you have for making the most of individual pieces in our closet? Maybe we have a shirt that we really love, a pair of pants we really love. How do we style them in a myriad of different ways?
Yeah. The best thing I always find is to pair them first with pieces that are kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from whatever else you have in your closet. So, like if you have a pair of jeans, think about styling them with something that is not so casual, like something that you wouldn't normally. If you're just wearing jeans to go out on the weekend, try and find something that maybe you would wear to a more elevated occasion and see what those look like together. So, mixing and matching just very different styles within your own closet, I think can be a really interesting thing to do with one piece. And then the other thing that I think is really fun to do is again to like I usually do like a reverse lookup on Pinterest is where you just like Google white jeans outfits and then all these different ideas come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really fun. But what I think can also be interesting is if you again think about like the opposite elements. So if your jeans are white, what would a cool contrast be really interesting? So like what contrasts with white? Like all the dark colors. So try like all the dark or brighter colors in your closet and think about it that way. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, thinking about it perhaps from a proportion play, like where do your jeans hit you? Do you want to layer something really long over top, or do you want to perhaps do two layers with like a crop and something long, like a longer cardigan? Or perhaps do you want to do like a long tunic that is layered with something shorter? Like it's really about doing like the opposite almost to the garment itself and seeing what comes out of it. But I do know, and again, like those apps are pretty good if you're not comfortable doing those mixing and matching pieces on your own. I think those are really great. But the other thing too is because when you do this you kind of get out of your comfort zone and it's not sure, and I think a lot of people just need that validation. So I would also recommend take a picture of these weird mixes that you've done that you're maybe not sure about, and then you kind of take away that nervousness when you're going out because you have this like second set of eyes on your own. um, because there's nothing worse than going out in an outfit that you're uncomfortable in. Then you're not going to do this exercise again, and you're not going to be happy with what's in your closet, which will make you feel like you don't have clothes and you go out and shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to make this a very positive experience so that you want to repeat it. So taking a photo so that you feel sure, wearing it around the house, just so that you can see how you feel in it comfort wise, is really important. Um, and I mean, the other thing you can do when you have time to get the most out of just one piece is to do like a little roulette with it. Like if you have a pair of jeans, try it with every single top in your closet. Doesn't matter if you don't think it'll look good. Like, who knows? Just try it. I think the biggest part of this is just having an open mind. And even trying non-traditional things. Like, do you have a big scarf? Can you wrap it into a little halter top with your jeans? Like, just try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes I've been surprised at what works together and also what doesn't work together. Things I thought looked great in my head didn't really turn out, or
Right.
things I was like, I don't know if that'll go together, and it works beautifully. So
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, you don't know.
Yeah. And that's where that time piece comes in. Like it's not just about slowing down our consumption. I think when we slow down the time we spend with our clothes, we take time to appreciate them, I think that trickles over into how we actually consume our clothes as well.
hmm And sometimes we might not think we have time. And some
Yeah,
people, absolutely, of course, it is a privilege to have that
absolutely.
time. But also, when we slow down shopping and we stop shopping less, I think that you could potentially be surprised at how much time you're spending shopping. I mean,
Yes.
it's even shopping online. It's kind of a time consuming activity.
Yeah.
So, kind of
Yeah.
shifting that time to looking at our closets rather than browsing,
Yeah.
websites,
Yeah.
stores.
Absolutely.
So
That's such a great point.
yeah. So on this thread of making the most of clothes that we do have and
Mm-hmm.
shopping less, of
Mm-hmm.
course, most people will shop at some point.
Of course. Of course.
So what tips do you have for making an intentional new to us or newly produced piece, secondhand or firsthand? How
Mm-hmm.
can we make sure it's something that, maybe is versatile, that we'll wear? What's your advice for that?
Yeah. I think the first thing always is to start by looking at what's in your closet. I think if you don't have a good handle on what's in there, then you're not going to make an intentional purchase. So, knowing what you already have and understanding your gaps are the biggest. And then I often have there's like a series of questions that you can ask yourself, like, does this suit my lifestyle? Is the very first. Like, is it realistic? I think so many of us, I've done this so many times, make aspirational purchases that don't really suit our lifestyles. So ask yourself sort of what lifestyle piece is this item going to satisfy? Is it my work? Is it my day to day? So it really has to be in alignment with one of your core lifestyle activities. Does it suit my values? Is another, I think, really important question. I think it's very easy to get overwhelmed, as I mentioned, in the world of sustainable fashion. So I think you have to understand what is important to you, whether it's fair and ethical manufacturing or perhaps it's natural dyes. So really focusing your attention on where you can find those pieces so that when you come home with it, you will feel good about that purchase and you will actually wear it because it's in alignment with your values. um, that's a really big one. And then finally, well, not finally, there's so many more. Knowing your personal style is the biggest. And I always feel like when I say that, it sounds kind of superficial, like knowing your personal style, especially because it changes all the time. And like, we're all human, everybody changes. Um, but I really think that is just so important because, as I mentioned, you become so much more the French word is in my head, imperméable, like impervious to the trends that are around, So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a really big one. And then, of course,
Yeah.
does it fit? Like, if you're trying the piece on, does it fit like properly? There's little things like shoulders and things that are kind of uncomfortable, and we think, oh, I'll settle because I'm in a hurry or because I really need this or whatever. But I don't think it's worth it to settle on a piece that doesn't really fit you well? And if it doesn't, will you commit to um, taking it to a tailor? You know, um, so I think that's a really good question. And then, of course, does it work with? Can I create 5 outfits with it, with what's already in my closet? And can I see myself wearing it for the next 5 years? Depending on where you're at in your life, and obviously everybody's body changes, like weight fluctuations and things like that. So that's not an easy question to answer, but I think it's like, if I saw myself wearing this in 5 years, would I be like, oh my God, what were you thinking? Or will I be like, no, yeah, I love, like, great, future Alyssa will love this garment, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a little bit of that forward thinking as well. And then depending on where you're at in your slow fashion journey, I also, if you have a very big closet, I think you should, or I don't like the word should, I think it might be helpful to ask yourself, is there a piece that you are willing to let go of to make more room in your closet when you add this one? So it's kind of like the one in, one out rule. Um, but I think, again, it helps you kind of really understand the value of whatever it is you're bringing in if you're willing to let something else go.
Mm.
So I think that's mostly what I
Yeah.
go through when I'm trying to make an intentional purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, right. Finding your style maybe sounds vain to some people, but it is super helpful when it comes to slow
Yeah.
fashion sustainability, because you're going to buy less, or what you do buy, you're going to actually wear. Like, I
Where?
mean, these moto jackets, these leather jackets have been in style in and out for like a while. And every time I see them, like, oh, it's kind of cute. But I'm like, the second I start to envision myself wearing it, I'm like, that's so not me. I have a really feminine style, like maybe a nude tan moto
Mm,
jacket, leather jacket with like a pink skirt would work, but it's
yeah.
just like not me. But I'm tempted every time because it
Yeah.
looks cute on other people. But I'm like, I would feel uncomfortable in that, I think. And
That's
so
so,
knowing
I
that
love
is
that.
is like important, I feel like.
Yes. Okay, good.
So
Yeah. I think it's so important. Yeah.
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 So, this has been a fantastic conversation,
I hope
Alyssa.
so.
It's a bummer to wrap it up, but I have one final question for you,
Hmm.
and that is, what would a better future for fashion look like to you?
I think a better future for fashion looks like less overall, to be completely honest. um, yeah, just consuming less in general, and for the value to be brought back to our clothes, both on the perspective of truly valuing and appreciating the people who make them, understanding that the resources that we use to create these clothes are finite, and that it needs to be more regenerative. I think regeneration and a more circular and aware approach to fashion, where we all consume less, but we are so much happier in our individual style and in our appreciation for the people and resources who made our clothes. Um, that's that's what a better future for fashion would look like for me.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on again to the show. This
Thank
was
you for
so fun,
having
and I
me.
can't wait to share this out with everybody. As I mentioned, links will be in the show notes, and all of Alyssa's links will be in the show notes, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. So everybody can check out more from you, Alyssa. There's a lot of good stuff on her YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. But yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you everybody for tuning in to our first video conversation for Conscious Style
Oh
Podcast.
yeah.
Exciting. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thanks everybody.